Let's first define what the resurrection of the dead is, because it's often misunderstood. I'm going to say this, and I want you to listen very carefully to one sentence. Both according to Christians and traditional Jews, and this was not known in the Hellenistic world, just listen very carefully to this one sentence. The resurrection of the dead is the life after dead. It's life after dead. Okay? Which means that there are three stages. A person after 120 years dies, and then there's a spiritual life, and then there is a resurrection, a physical resurrection of the dead. So that's life after death. You understand that? And what is unique about the resurrection is that it is restoring the spiritual soul with the physical body and a physical resurrection. And the Gospels are very clear about this, and usually people misunderstand the Christian text, is they're not, when they talk about this resurrection, they are very much talking in Pharisaic terms. In contrast, for example, the Hellenistic Jews who were deeply influenced by Greek thought, philosophy, and so on, which was very pervasive at the time, there was no physical resurrection, but there would be some sort of life after death that was a completely spiritual existence. So that's what. So if I'm going to just be hyper technical on answering that question, traditional Christianity sees the resurrection of the dead at the end of days as a physical resurrection of the soul restored to the body. That's very important. Okay, there is a difference, I think, in the Christian text of what exactly do resurrected people look like. Paul's notion of a resurrected body is one that's different, in some way very different than the physical body that they had during their lifetime. The chapter I'm alluding to, I think almost everyone knows here, that's 1 Corinthians 15, where Paul refers to the body as a spiritual body. What precisely that means, I don't know. But he is talking about both a spiritual body. Both are there. We see later on that there probably was a lot of pushback on that, of exactly what is the nature of Jesus who resurrected, because he's spending 3 days in paradise, or 2 days 2 nights and 3 days in paradise, where he promised one of the people on the cross, only found in the book of Luke, that today you will be with me in paradise. But what exactly did the resurrected Jesus, what was he like? And we see that as we go later in the Christian canon, chronologically, the more physical and tangible Jesus' resurrection is, because there's clearly a pushback against this. So you might have in 1 Corinthians, one of the letters of Paul, where the resurrected body is something very, very different than the physical body that a person had during their lifetime. The book of Mark has no resurrection accounts in it at all. The book of Mark ends in chapter 16, verse 8, with the women who come to the tomb, find it empty, are told by a man that Jesus rose. They were frightened and alarmed, and they said nothing to anyone. And that's where the book ends. Somewhere at the end of the 2nd or early 3rd century, probably, scribes found this to be an extremely unsatisfying ending. And what you find from chapter 16, verse 9 through 20 is a later addition to it. So we see that would be a very early ambiguity. Okay? Most good Christian Bibles, meaning those that have good annotation, so on, will bracket Mark 16, 9 through 20 by saying this is not reliable, it is not the original text, the early and best manuscripts don't possess this. If we start moving further on in the Gospels, we're getting writers who want to emphasize that Jesus' being resurrected is very real and very tangible, and he's physical, and he is in no way some sort of spiritual being that can't be felt, seen, touched, and so on. So if we get to Luke, we're going to have that pushback where Jesus is just entering the room in Jerusalem where the 11 disciples are, and he's eating fish with them. I mean, who eats fish? Real physical people. And for John, that's at the very end of the first century, we could see the pushback further to really emphasize that it's really physical, and Jesus rose in every way in a full body. We see that John is going to have the 10 who are there, Thomas being absent, and Thomas then doubting the fact that Jesus physically rose from the dead, and then Thomas actually touching seeing the holes in Jesus' hands. That's very, very physical. So notice the trajectory there, going back from Mark, we don't have any resurrection account. Paul, very early text, it's a spiritual body, like a seed put in the ground, as the parable which dies, and essentially something else completely comes out, to when we get to John, it's physical, have no doubt about it. That's pushback. And there's a reason for that trajectory. But it is a physical resurrection.